Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the P. Carroll Sport Podcast. Paul Carroll here, and we are back in the club season here in Tipperary. It doesn't feel like we've had much of a break because we haven't. The county championship getting underway this weekend, little only maybe 3 weeks after the All Ireland final. I think we're all on a high here in Tipperary, buzzing for hurling. I can't wait for this weekend. If you've been watching some of my inter-county podcasts, we do it after every Tipperary game. For this, we're going to be doing it after every round of the Tipperary County Hurling Championship. I think this might be the third year of the podcast, if I'm not mistaken. It started with the Club Championship, and it will continue with the Club Championship here in 2025. So this is the kind of preview of the championship. We're going to go down through the County Senior Hurling Championship, Premier Intermediate, and Intermediate as well. I'll give my thoughts on who I think will have a good chance of going through. We'll go through the round one games as well. As always, if you haven't seen this podcast before, I go through my predictions for each game. I'll give a prediction and we'll go through the results then on Sunday evening, maybe Monday, looking back on the games and looking ahead to round two. So that's how it works. Just my opinions, John. When it comes to the club game, as we know in Tipperary, it's so unpredictable. In the last 8 years here in Tip, we've had six different winners. We haven't had a team retain the championship since Thurles back in 2017 when they won the last of their four in a row. So, it's very hard to predict. I think in round one last year, out of the 24 games between senior, premier intermediate, and intermediate, I got 9 predictions right. So that wasn't good. But in week two, I did get 18. So it's always very hard to predict the games. I was going to say particularly in the senior, but pretty much across all three divisions. But we're going to try our best. So we also have a new addition to the podcast, and that is a tier list that I made. So we're going to be going through that in just a bit as well. So I'll be putting all the senior hurling teams in different tiers that I have ranked out here. If you're listening on Spotify, this is probably better for the YouTube viewers. So we have a tier list here. The top tier is favourites. Then we'll have a big say as second tier. Third tier is could go on a run. Fourth tier is will have to be careful. And the fifth tier is could be in trouble. So we're going to be ranking the teams in there. And yeah, we'll go down through the predictions. And I'm shooting from the hip here. I've no notes in front of me. I'm just giving my thoughts. I'll be commentating on these games on Tip FM. If you're not aware, we've 4 games on Tip FM this weekend. So be sure to tune in if you're out and about at different games and want to hear what's happening elsewhere. Tip FM will be keeping you up to date on all the games throughout Saturday and Sunday. We've Nina and Thurles on Saturday. I'll be doing that game. We also have Drum and Lockmore on Saturday evening. And Sunday we have Clouty Rossmore against Killadangan. And we also have Bursley against Killer One. So those games are all live on Tip FM this weekend. So let's just get straight into it. The County Senior Hurling Championship is upon us. And there's a lot to talk about. As you see on the screen here, you might be wondering, why do I have some teams highlighted? Let's see, I'll give you a second to have a look. Why do I have Killadangan, Clouty Rossmore, JK Brackens highlighted in the senior? We also have Girton Hu, Aero Gannacarty, Ballinan, Carrick Swan highlighted in the Premier Intermediate. They are divisional winners, so if they don't finish in the top 2 in their respective groups, then they will have a preliminary quarter final. So it will be interesting to see, particularly in Premier Intermediate, because we have a divisional winner in each group. So I don't know, does that increase the chances of having a preliminary quarter final or maybe decrease? I'm not too sure. So let's go down through it. Like Group 1 of the County Senior Hurling Championship, Toomevara, Killadangan, Holy Cross and Clouty Rossmore. That is some group. That is fierce hard to predict. Like Toom and Killadangan had a right game in the North Championship just about a week and a half ago, 321 to 221 I think that was. Clouty Rossmore, West champions, Holy Cross, Ballycal, all those young lads coming through. A real nice team. Joe Caesar, Brian O'Mara, then the likes of Dara Woods, Kyle Barrett still there. Nice goalkeeper, Ewan Burke. They have a really nice team, and Kyle Barrett back in the full back line as well. This year he's kind of in the forwards. Cathal O'Reilly as well from the Tipperary under-20s. They have a really, really strong team and some really good young lads as well. Ty Gould and a few more. I could list them off, but Holy Cross in a really nice place. So really interesting to see how they get on. Robbie Ryan as well. Now I'm just naming players, so I'll stop now. But that's a really good group. Group 1, incredibly hard to predict. Group 2, we've Thurles Sarsfields and Nina. They're playing each other this week. Cashel, the newcomers, who won the Premier Intermediate last year, and they're against Mullinahone on the opening weekend. That is a massive game. Just because on the rankings, like the seedings, Cashel and Mullinahone, are kind of right there. Cashel coming up, Mullinahone have been. For some reason, I just think they're. Mullinahone, I'll go through it in the tier list, but that's a huge game between Cashel and Mullinahone, I think, this week. Not that neither of them could beat Thurles or Nina Rogue, but they'll feel that their best chance of securing a win will be against each other, and they're playing each other in the first round. So that is a massive game for both Cashel and Mullinahone. That is on Saturday afternoon. Group 3, we've Lockmore, Castleiney, JK Brackens, Drummond Inch and Lura. So it's a mid-derby between 3 of the teams, and then Lura in there as well. Of course, their second year up senior, their first year up senior last year. They won the relegation final, beating Templederry. But they'll feel like they needed that year to kind of find their feet, and they'll be looking to make strides. Had a really good game with Toomevara in the North Championship. Only lost by 3 or 4 points, and were very competitive throughout. Group 4 then, Moycarkey Burris, Killer 1 McDonough's, Roscrea and Bursalee. Killer 1 and Bursalee played again just about 10 days ago. Well, only this day last week, as I'm recording here Wednesday evening, 9:15. They had a really close game. Bursalee won it by, was it 3 points for a finish, but Killer 1 would be kicking themselves kind of walking out of Nina there last week, because they really could have won that game and booked a place in a North final. Moycarkey Burris have lost their second mid-final in a row, but they've had such a good mid-championship, beating Thurles and Lockmore Castleiney. So semi-finalists last year, lost to Toomevara. They'll feel that they'll push on. Really young teams. 5 of their 6 starting forwards are under 21, and then they've Kieran Morris there, the kind of elder statesman of that group, and just marksman on the frees as well. And of course, Reece Shelley in goals. Kyle Shelley seems to have moved to wing back this year, and a really, really strong team do Moycarkey Burris have. So very interesting to see how they progress after last year. So we'll run down through it. We'll run through the groups. We'll run through the game by game. But let me know what you think. What are we? Where's the timer here? I haven't recorded a podcast in a while. 7 minutes exactly. Be sure to leave a like. This is all free. Subscribe to the podcast. As we said, after every round of the championship, there will be a podcast. And I'm not sure, will I do preview podcasts, or will I just do the preview of round 2 in the review of round 1, if you get me. I'll probably do that. It's just kind of handier, and it's all there in one. But yeah, it's all free. So any like, any subscription, retweets on Twitter, things like that, that's the currency we're talking in here on the P. Carroll Sport podcast. So give us a like and subscribe to the channel. Obviously doing really well post the kind of All Ireland. So that's encouraging to see. But I'd imagine there'll be a dip in the kind of views and things like that for the county championship. But we do it for the love of the game. Can't wait for this county championship to get underway. Right, let's get going with this tier list. I put this together today, so we may as well use it. So as you can see, we have the 16 Dan Breen teams here. I'm going to give my opinion on all of them. This is going to put me up for serious scrutiny here, but don't take it too seriously. Just a lad sitting in his room talking about the County Ireland Championship. If I say a team could be in trouble, but you're from that club and you know that you have this fella back and this lad back and this young lad coming up is going unreal, you know more than me, okay? This is just my opinion. Don't shoot me, but do give me your opinions in the comments below. So right, it's alphabetical order. So the first team here is Bursalee. So if we flick back, Bursalee are in Group 4. They're with Moycarkey Burris, Killer 1 and Roscrea. For Bursalee, I think they have a really good chance of getting out of the group. I think Roscrea will go through Roscrea, but I think they might be in a little bit of bother in this group. But they will feel, especially with the North teams, that they're very competitive. They would have been beaten by Moycarkey Burris last year fairly heavily in round 1, but the year before that they drew with Moycarkey Burris. But you feel Moycarkey might have improved kind of since then, with some of their older players, some of their younger players getting a bit more experience. But we're here to talk about Bursalee. Had a really good I suppose North Championship, Bet Killer won, and then they 1 point lost to Killadangan, and they'll feel they were right there. Eddie Ryan had the chance to level it at the last kind of puck of the game, and could have ended up in the back of the net with that long range free. Tom Delaney came on in that game, so interesting to see where his fitness is at. Dan McCormick went off, so similarly interesting to see where his fitness is at. Jerry Kelly back this year. I've seen him play twice. He's such a good ball winner. I think he's a real leader in that forward line for Bursalee, and a huge push on. Really talented player. So for Bursalee, where do I see him going? I think they have a really good chance of getting out of a group, and they are a team that could go on a run. So I'm putting Bursalee there in the could go on a run bracket. Of course, they don't have Brendan Maher this year. He's retired. But I think Bursalee have a real good chance of getting out of the group, this game on Sunday between them and Killarone is massive, because if they win that, they'll feel that they might have one foot in the knockout stages. But could go on a run, I think, is a fair place for Bursalee. But I'll preface all this by this championship is so competitive. I haven't seen the betting odds. We'll have a look at that in a little bit as well. I'll kind of give my tier, and then we'll see what the bookmakers are thinking, because I haven't looked at that yet. But that's where I see Bursalee. They're in that kind of middle tier of they could go on a run. That's why they're in that tier. So that's where I have Bursalee. So let's go to Cashel Kincormac's now. We'll flick back. Cashel Kincormac's are in Group 2 with Thurles Sarsfield's Nina Erogue and CJ Kickham's Mullinahone. So first up for them is that clash with Mullinahone in Littleton on Sunday at 1 o'clock. That is a really massive game for both teams, as we mentioned. But Cashel, the nature of their group, I'd fancy them to beat Mullinahone. I think Cashel have a lot of good players. Obviously, Oisin O'Donoghue and Owen Connolly, but all the Bonners there, Ger Brown, Aaron Brown gone back into goals, Cathal Quinn there as well. They have a really, really solid team. So I think they'll have to be careful. I have them put in, will have to be careful. And why I say that is this first game with Mullinahone is huge. If they win that, I think that could open them up to the could go on a run bracket, okay? But that game with Mullinahone is huge. They're a big town team. They're back in senior. A lot of tradition in that club, and it's kind of cool that they're in with some of the other big towns like Thurles and Nina. So I have them in will have to be careful. But as I said, if they beat Mullinahone, they're in the could go on a run bracket, because if they win that game, they could go on and give Nina and Thurles a right rattle, and who knows where they could end up. But they have to be careful because of that first game with Mullinahone. Next up, we have Clonalty Rossmore. Clonalty Rossmore are in Group 1 with Toom, Killadangan, Holy Cross, and themselves. So they are the West champions, so they do have a preliminary quarter final if they need it. Up first for Clonalty is against Killadangan and Templemore on Sunday at 1 o'clock, a game you can hear live on Tip FM. But that is a massive game. As are all the games in that group, that's a really difficult group to try and call. So I'm going to put them on could go on a run, because they could go on a run, and they do have the preliminary quarter final. I think they in relegation last year. Remember last year they had Killadangan beaten pretty much, and they're up by 8 points in injury time, and then Killadangan, I think Darren Moran, was he the one who got that late goal that day? To bring that game back. I think Billy Seymour could have possibly got one as well, and somehow they didn't beat Killadangan after being 8 points up with time almost up. So they're in could go on a run. Do I put them in front of or behind Bursalee? I think given the nature of their group, we'll put them just behind Bursalee, but that could go on a run bracket is incredibly competitive. Next up we have Drum and Inch. So Drum and Inch are in there with Lockmore, Castellini, JK Brackens and Lura. Of course, Lockmore are the defending champions. They won the Dunbreen last year, and they're facing off in Templemore on Saturday at 7 o'clock. Again, another game live on Tip FM. That JK Brackens, Drum, Lockmore mid kind of rivalry, those mid games can go either way. I've seen Lockmore against Drum a couple of times in the last years. I was at a game they played in Moyne-Temple-Toohey a couple of years ago, and Lockmore won that game. Drum and Inch are in an interesting place, just with the likes of Seamus Callan and Johnny Ryan and Butler. Is it David Butler? Some of they're kind of older players, and they're waiting for the younger kind of crop to come through. The likes of Cormac Fitzpatrick is a very promising player, but he was on the 30 CBS Harty Cup team this year. He's a young lad. You don't want to be putting too much pressure on these lads. It's interesting to see where they are. I think, given the nature of their group, that they're in with Lockmore, JK Brackens and Lura, I think Drum and Inch will have to be careful. Now they again they'll be probably second favourites against Lockmore, and I think they might be second favourites against JK Brackens, given Brackens are mid champions. But there's that rivalry, the neighbours, the Campions and the McGraths, all related. There's always going to be bite in those games. I'm a big fan of their goalkeeper, Owen Collins. Really nice puck out, really nice striker the ball. But I do have them in will have to be careful, just because I could see a scenario where they, let's say, lose narrowly to Brackens and Lockmore. They play a Lura who in their head they might be expected to beat, but I think Lura are right there with Drummond Inch, and they could pull a result out. So I have Drummond Inch and will have to be careful. That's I think, in my opinion, where I have them. Again, you could be from Drummond Inch thinking this fellow doesn't have a clue. You could be right. So next we have that is the badge, the crest of Holy Cross Ballycahill. Holy Cross in there with Toom, Killadangan and Clouty. Really, really difficult group. But it is the type of group that if you get out, you could go on a run. So I have Holy Cross Ballycahill in the could go on a run bracket. Let's see, they have Tumivara up first Saturday 7 o'clock in Bursalee. Really, really tough game to call that one. But they have all those young players I mentioned. Brian O'Mara's fitness is going to be one to really watch out for. But they have Brian O'Mara, Joe Caesar, all those young lads that I mentioned, Carl Barrett there, Cathal O'Reilly. They have a really, really good team, and I think they're very justifiably in the could go on a run bracket. I might put them a little bit just in front of Clonouty, but then Clonouty at the preliminary quarter final as well. So they're right there. That's just so level. You could replace any of those teams, I think, on the could go on a run tier. Let's go through this fairly quickly. We have JK Brackens. They're, of course, in there with Drummond Inch, Lockmore and Lura. They have Lura up first in Nina on Sunday at 6 o'clock. Venue is interesting for me there in Nina, because Lura would be much more used to playing in Nina than JK Brackens. Brackens mid-champions. Lura could be coming in under the radar, kind of had a few weeks off since their game against Toom. Brackens would have had the back-to-back games against Holy Cross and then against Mike Harkey Burris. Might have went on the beer. Who knows? They probably did on Sunday after the mid-final. Lura probably weren't on the beer, so Lura could be coming in under the radar there. But I think we'll have to put JK Brackens in. Will have a big say. They got to the quarterfinals last year and were beaten by Tumivara. And I just thought in that game they were a little bit one-dimensional. They were going through the lines with everything. And I just kind of thought, that do they have a plan B? And I think, it's another year with Shane Keegan, really good coach. He'll have them, raring to go. They have a really nice team. Of course, Andrew Ormond has kind of kicked on to a new level this series in all-star hurler form. So he's going to be a huge push on for them. They have what you kind of need in a good team with Paddy Cadell there, Connor Cadell, and obviously Jamie Ormond was really impressive last year, and they've some nice kind of 18, 19-year-olds there as well. So I think they'll have a big say, and that's where I have them will have a big say. They've gotten to the quarterfinals in recent years. Mentioned the game last year against Toom. They'll have a big say, I think, JK Brackens. But in that group as well with the Drummond Inch and Lockmore Castellani, they're huge games, and they'll probably see this game against Lura as must win. So that's where I have JK Brackens. They're the first team we have there and will have a big say. Next we have Killadangan. I am putting Killadangan in the favourites bracket. Killadangan North champions, 2023 champions. Were kind of ambushed by Mike Harkey Burris last year in the quarterfinal stage with that Max Hackett goal, and were beaten. But Killadangan in there with Toom, Clonouty and Holy Cross. They're in that dreaded Group 1, massive game against Clonouty Rossmore. I think Killadangan lads were probably on the beer after the North final, and why not? But they're a really seasoned team. They'll know how to get themselves up for the county championship. And they might feel that they might owe Clonouty Rossmore one after last year, although they didn't lose to Clonouty last year, but they'll feel that they can't be blindsided by them again. And it's not even a fact of being blindsided by Clonouty, because Clonouty are a really good team, and so that's going to be a very interesting game on Sunday. But that's where I have Killadangan. Have to have them up around the favourites. Been there or thereabouts for the last, almost the last decade, but you can definitely say the last half a decade anyway, since their inaugural win in 2020. And winning it again then in 2023. So they are going to be right up there, Killadangan. Next we have Killer 1 McDonough's. Killer 1, if you need reminding, are in Group 4 with Mike Harkey Burris, Roscrea and Bursalee. And Killer 1 are against Bursalee on Sunday at 3:30. So massive game for them. I am going to put them in the could go on a run bracket, because again that's a tough group with Bursalee, with Roscrea and with Mike Harkey Burris. But Killer 1 I saw them in that North semi-final against Bursalee, and they should have won the game. I think they'll be kicking themselves that they didn't. Craig Morgan's fitness is of interest. He didn't play against Bursalee, So it's going to be interesting to see how he is. He went off injured against, who would they have played? I'm trying to think who did Killer One play in the North Championship. Kind of going blank here. Or was it the Bursley game he went off in? No, they would have had Nina. They played Nina, yeah. So he went off injured in that game. So I haven't heard any update on Craig Morgan. So that's going to be of interest. But Niall O'Mara is in really, really good form. Jerry Cahill is there. The forward line, Keane Darcy, was unreal against Nina and then didn't really touch the ball against Bursley, whatever way the game went. They have ball winners there in Thomas Cleary, Willie Cleary on the frees. Very, very solid team. So they're a team that could go on a run. And don't forget that last year, they conceded 2 very soft goals against Lockmore, but that they kind of gave up to Lockmore in the county quarter final. So they're the definition of a team that could go on a run, I think. The next we have is Laura Dura. Laura are going to be in the will have to be careful bracket. They're in a tough group. We mentioned already they're in there with JK Brackens, Drummond and Lockmore Castleiney. But it's second year up for Laura at the grade. Our good friend Ken Hogan over them. And I just think that while they're in a tough group, I think they have a result in them. Now, whether it comes against JK Brackens or Lockmore or Drummond, I don't know. It mightn't come against any of them. But I think they have definitely a result in them. And I have them in the will have to be careful bracket. You could say they could be in trouble given the nature of their group. But I think when push comes to shove, I think Laura are good enough to definitely stay up this year. So I have Laura there and they will have to be careful. Next we have Lockmore Castleiney, the reigning champions. History tells us, are they going in the favourites bracket or they will have a big say? History tells us that the Dan Breen Championship is very hard to retain. As we mentioned, we've had 6 different winners in the last 8 years. We often have had a team retain since Thurles in 2017. They're in there with Drum, they're in there with Laura, and they're in there with Brackens. Big game between them and Drum and Inch now, but I think Lockmore will always fancy themselves against Drum and against JK Brackens, and against Laura, who they beat last year. And they'll fancy themselves to get out of the group. They'll be disappointed with the nature of their defeat to Lockmore or to Moycarkey Burris in the mid championship, but I think we have to have them and will have a big say. I don't have them as favourites just because I think it's difficult to retain, but Lockmore are Lockmore, and I don't think people would have thought they would have won the county championship at the start last year, and they went on an unbelievable run and they didn't lose a game in the mid championship or the Dan Breen championship. I have them right there and will have a big say. And do you put them in front of JK Brackens? I'm going to put them in front of JK Brackens just on the basis of their experience in the latter end of the championship and things like that. So Lockmore Castleiney will have a big say in this year's championship, as will the next team, which is Moycarkey Burris. Have just beaten narrowly in the mid-final against JK Brackens. We have them just behind JK Brackens in the will have a big say bracket. Moycarkey in there with Roscrea, Killer One and Bursley. Need to be careful with this first game against Roscrea. They beat them well last year. Had the mid-final last weekend. It's easy now for them to take their eye off the ball here, but I think Eddie Brennan will have them fairly nailed on for this one. It's a double header down in Templemore on Saturday evening. Roscrea against Moycarkey, followed by Drum against Lockmore Castleiney. But I think Moycarkey Burris will be right up there. Semi-finalists last year. As we mentioned, the young team, Eddie Brennan as manager, Rhys Shelley in goals, great free taker, solid defenders. They're going to be right there. They will have a big say, and I have them right there, just behind JK Brackens. And you'll think, why are they behind Lockmore? They beat Lockmore, yes, but it's much of a muchness. Next we have is CJ Kickham's Mullinahone. They're going to be the first team for me that are in the could be in trouble bracket. Why do I say that? They're in a tough group. They're in with Thurles Sarsfield's Nina Rogue and Cashel. And that's a really big one, as we've said already, between Cashel and Mullinahone on in Littleton on Sunday at 1 o'clock. I don't know, Mullinahone, they could prove me wrong, with Mikey O'Shea and Conor Whelan. I haven't seen their team sheets now. They did lose in the South Championship to Carrick Swan, so I could be mistaken. Some of those players might be missing. I know Mikey O'Shea was definitely playing that game, but I just think the nature of their group, Cashel will have that kind of first game back up senior kind of bounce. So if they were to lose that game, they could be in trouble, and that's why they're in the could be in trouble bracket. So that's just where where I have Mullinahone, but Owen Kelly and Paul Curran still going strong. And let's see what way it plays out. Nina Rogue is next. I have Nina in the could go on a run bracket or tier. They're in the group there with Thurles Sarsfields, with Mullinahone, and with Cashel. And it's a big first game for them against Thurles. If they win that game, and they've played Thurles a lot, and they've been close with Thurles, albeit last year maybe not so much. But Jake Morris's fitness is going to be something to keep an eye on. Just dealing with kind of a niggly injury as far as I'm aware. Just came on in the game against Killer One McDonough's. But Nina, our team, Sam O'Farrell there now. Let's not forget about Barry Heffernan, who's there, and all the Heffernans, Mikey Heffernan on the frees. Very solid team, and Josh Keller, of course, as well, and some of the other Jake Donlan Houlihan and these fellas as well. Nina Rogue are I think the definition of could go on a run. So I'm going to put them there. And again, that tier is just level. I don't think that's a ranking there between Bursley, Clouty, Rossmore, Holy Cross, Keller One, and Nina. We have them at the end, but they could be at the front. So don't get too hung up on that. Next we have is Ross Gray. And I think Ross Gray are in the could be in trouble bracket. Let's see the group that they're in. Ross Gray are in there with Mike Harkyburris, Killer One, and Bursley. They'll be underdogs in all of those games. I think it's fair to say. And I don't know, it's just, I'm not getting a great vibe off Ross Gray this year. That's all I can kind of say. Their Junior B team pulled out in North Championship. That could be a whole pile of nothing. Their Junior A team, I think, have a walkover or two. They got a big beating against Kildangan in the North Championship. So I think you kind of have to put them in the could be in trouble bracket. And I have them just behind Mullinahone. But they can easily prove me wrong, but that's where I see Ross Gray. They're in the could be in trouble bracket for now. And next we have Thurles Sarsfields. Thurles in there with Nina, in there with Mullinahone, and in there with Cashel King Cormac's. I think Thurles always have a big say in the championship. They're probably the bookmakers' favourites, as they tend to be each year. Ronan Maher's fitness is of a concern there. He played the full game against Mike Harkyburris, but didn't look himself. He's dealing with a bit of a niggly injury as well. So I just think with Thurles, they're obviously going to be up there either in favourites or will have a big say. I'm going to put them up in the will have a big say or favourites. What do we think? Beaten by Mike Harkyburris in that mid-championship game, but Ronan Maher was kind of injured that game. I just think, look, we'll put them up in the favourites. Yeah, let's put them up in favourites. Thurles Sarsfields. I suppose Ronan captaining Tipperary to the All-Ireland Championship will give a huge boost to the team. The two Stakelums obviously playing big roles for Tipperary. Conor Stakelum actually on the freeze now for Thurles Sarsfields. I just think, now I could be proven wrong, that maybe they could throw in a Killian Minogue or someone. I just think maybe they're missing out on that inside forward, that kind of danger man that is in there. If you get, now they have good forwards, like Liam McCormack had a good year last year, Paddy Creedon, but it's just, do they have that kind of inside marksman forward that has to be marshalled and has to be game planned for? I'm not too sure, but they have a really, really solid team and a good kind of squad depth, so they are going to be up there in the favourites bracket, I think. But that's where I have them. And last but not least, Toomey Vara, beaten finalists last year, pushed it right up to Kildangan in the North Championship. Injury concern for them is the goalkeeping position. Rory Breslan, I believe he done his knee earlier in the year, but as far as I'm aware, he could be fit to play the county championship. So that remains to be seen. They had young Dara Hayes in goals the last day. Kind of got caught with Paul Flynn for one of the goals where he threw it up and Paul Flynn knocked it away from him and into the back of the net. But he's 17 or 18 years of age, playing his first senior game. I'm not going to hold that against him, but you just worry in that way because Rory Breslan was really, really good last year for Toomey Vara. I think when I went through my team of the year, I had him right up there, just behind Reece Shelley. But I'm going to put Toom. They're definitely in the will have a big say. It's just a matter of, are they up there with as the favourites? I think I'm going to put them there. I'm going to put them as favourites. They've tweaked their team a little bit. Barry O'Connell was gone up into the forwards. And they've really strong. I think some of the Ryans are back as well. Paul Ryan could be back. And Liam Ryan had such a good year last year. Andrew Ryan as well. I think, and of course, Darren McCarthy and Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy was class last year, reflecting back. So I think Toom are up there in the favourites. So that is the way I have it. I must save that and post this image on on Twitter and Instagram and things like that, and just kind of set off fireworks maybe around Tipperary. But that's the way I see it going. Again, really, really hard championship to call, but that's how I see it. Let's just run through it real quick. Favourites: Kildangan, Thurles and Toom. They will have a big save bracket. There's Lockmore, Castellani, JK Brackens and Mike Carkey Burris. Could go on a run: Bursalee, Clounty, Rossmore, Holy Cross, Ballycal, Killarone, MacDonough's and Nina. Will have to be careful: Cashel, Drummond, Lura, and could be in trouble: Mullinahone and Roscrea. That's how I see the county championship going. Let me know how you think in the comments. I'm sure you don't agree with me, but that's why we're here. We're not here to agree on everything. Debate is good, and that's what it's all about. So let's move on to the predictions. Actually, no, we'll have a quick word about the Premier Intermediate Championship and the Intermediate, just an overall kind of synopsis, and then we will go to our predictions bracket. So let's go to the Premier Intermediate. Again, very open championship, but I think the standout team is probably Carrick Swan. Now, you could just say, oh, that's easy. They lost the county championship, county final last year to Cashel. It's easy to say that. But I think they're just a really stacked, solid team. The Gavin O'Halloran and Aaron O'Halloran would have pushed on from being involved with Tipperary all year. Of course, Callum Lanigan and the form he was in last year. I think they're very, very strong. Still in a difficult group, though, particularly against kind of South rivals in Killinall and St Mary's. But they'll fancy themselves against all them. Curtin Hooga and Gould, I think, are going to be right up there. Mid-champions just demolished Moyne Temple there in the mid-final last weekend. Beat Thurles Sarsfields in a bit of a comeback win late on. But they're going to be right there as well. Other teams: Templederry coming down from the Senior Championship. Going to be interesting to see how Templederry get on. Of course, they were beaten by Ballina in the North Championship. I don't think they're going to be like Upperchurch last year, where Upperchurch had come down the year before and they were kind of favourites to go back up. I haven't seen the bookmakers' odds, but I can't imagine Templederry are favourites to go back up. And they're in there with a tricky group. But Sean Ryan, he made my team of the year last year despite their relegation. I'm a big fan of his play, and he can do things on his own. Not that he has to do them on his own. There's plenty of other good hurlers in Templederry as well, but he's one of those marquee forwards. Like I was saying, that if Thurles Sarsfields had a Sean Ryan, you'd have him right up there at the top. So it'll be interesting to see how they go. Aero Gannacarthy, West champions, so they have that fallback if they need it. They have a preliminary quarter final. Ballina, bet my own Burgess last Sunday in the North final. Coming along real nicely. Ballina, obviously the mix of the likes of Michael Breen and Stephen O'Brien and these fellas, but also real nice young lads coming through as well. And David Kelly is in sensational form as well. Then we have that group 4 with Carrick Swan, Marys, Clonakilty and Killinall. We're not going to do a tier list, but I think among my favourites will be Carrick, Garton Who and Thurles Sarsfields. And then Upperchurch Drumban are there as well. Of course, just beating an extra time against Cashel last year, lest we forget. But just kind of a worrying performance by them against Moyne Temple Toohey. And sometimes vibes and that kind of thing, you'd wonder where they're at. But they could come out. They're playing Moneygall on Sunday in Dala at 1 o'clock. So really interesting to see where they are. But Upperchurch Drumban, real hard team. Some serious talent there. But let's just see where they're at. They're going to be up there among the favourites for sure. In terms of the other end, I'd worry a little bit about Sean Tracy's. Of course, it's about Newport in the relegation final replay last year, so they're going to be up against it, but they will fancy themselves against Moyne Temple Toohey. They will think that that's probably a game that they'll have to target in the group stages, but that's how I see that. In the intermediate, Kappa White West champions with a sensational West final win over Golden Kilfeacle. Beat them. Were down by 4 points with 60 minutes gone and scored 3-1 to come back and win the game. So Kappa White are going to be right there. Golden Kilfeacle, I think, will be right there as well. Ballingarry beaten finalists last year against Moneygall. They'll be right there as well. And Kilsheelan and Shannon Rovers. It's a competitive grade, but I think probably the winner will probably come from, Kappa White, Golden, Kilsheelan, Shannon Rovers, Borsicane, possibly a Portro, Knockavilla there and there as well. I think that's probably where you're looking at a winner coming from. Now another team could come from out of nowhere and win it. Mull Rovers up from Junior A, interesting to see how they get on. And then you have the likes of a Ballybacon Grange who seem to win a game. They get that win. They're in a really difficult group though. Kilsheelan, Shannon Rovers and Golden. So they'll be favourites in that group to finish bottom and go into a relegation. But that is no unknown territory for Ballybacon Grange. They seem to always get the winner. There's a couple of second teams in there as well in Clouty, Rossmore and Drummond Inch that you just kind of don't know where they'll be at. Newport, of course, dropping down. They were beaten by Borsicane in the North Championship. So they'll have to, they'll get a chance at retribution in the county championship. But intermediate is going to be competitive as always, and Skeena Rinky there as well. Very solid team. So yeah, these games are really tough to call. But if I was to give a maybe top three, I would think Golden Kilfeacle are the team to beat. But Kappa White, Shannon Rovers, Kilsheelan, all there as well. Ballingarry, of course, as well. So now I'm just doing what I was doing and listing teams off. But yeah, if I had a fancy, I'd say Golden Kilfeacle. That's kind of my little fancy there in the Intermediate Championship. If I had a fancy in the Premier Intermediate, apart from Burgess, because I'm always going to back my own, I think Carrick Swan probably the team to beat. But don't be surprised if Gorton Who are right there as well. And then if I was to give a prediction, I think I should probably go look at the odds in a second. But let's go through the predictions game on game first. So again, reminder, if you're this far, like, subscribe, it's all free, and give us a good review on Spotify if you're listening there as well. So let's go down through the predictions. As always, each round I'll predict the games as I see them. Don't take them too seriously. They're just what I think. You probably know more if you're from any of these clubs. But let's go. We'll try and run down through this quickly. What are we? 37 minutes in. So let's get this going. So it doesn't start easy. Those are Toomevara against Holy Cross Ballycal. This is a really difficult group, really difficult game to call. I'm gonna go with Toomevara just to shade it. Now let's see what kind of format that's in. Okay, I kind of want that panel to be in the middle. Sorry, now a bit of formatting issues here. So, and let's do that. I'm not that good for the Excel, but we're going to go team one. Team one here is Toomevara. So, second game here is Killadangan against Clouty Rossmore in Templemore at 1 o'clock on Sunday. I'm going to go with Killadangan, but again, it's not going to be Killadangan by a landslide. It's going to be close, tight game. Would I be surprised if Clouty turned them over? A little bit, but not a lot. Next game, Cashel against Mullinahone. Massive. This is massive game now. Cashel coming up from Premier Intermediate. Mullinahone are going to be right there. I think this is just a huge game for both teams. I'm going to give the edge to Cashel Kincormac's here. Just on their bounce back up to senior. A lot of momentum behind them. A lot of lads hurling well. So I'm going to give it to Cashel. Probably the younger team, so Mullinahone could catch them on experience. Just kind of bully them, that kind of thing. But I think Cashel are a mature team at this stage, albeit they're young and inexperienced at the senior grade. But we are going to go with Cashel. The next game, Thurles Sarsfields against Nina Aerogue. Nina very much kind of like, Forrest Gump, box of chocolates. Never know what exactly you're going to get. But they have a lot of talent in there. And I think they could really shove it up to Thurles Sarsfields here in the rag. I am going to give the nod to Thurles, but I'd like to know what kind of state Ronan Maher and Jake Morris are in. And I'd also like to know where Nina will play Jake. I'd like to see them play him out the field, as we've said before. But I'm going to go with Thurles Sarsfields. But again, Nina Rogue right there. Brackens against Lura. I'm going to go. This is a all one so far. I'm going to go with Brackens to beat Lura. The form they're in, you kind of have to favour them. It's Sunday, 6 o'clock in Nina. That one is, and then Sunday could be a very busy game now that I think of it, because I'm going to be in Dalla for the double header. I'm commentating on Bursley against Killarone, but Upper Church and Moneygall are playing at 1:30 on Sunday in Dalla, so I'll be at that. Then you could go into Nina on the way home and see JK Brackens against Lura. So that's at 6 o'clock. So, geez, this is going to be unreal, isn't it? Just such a good time of the year when the county championship gets underway. Drummond against Lockmore. I'm going to go with Lockmore here. 2 o'clock on Saturday. Sorry, 7 o'clock on Saturday in Templemore. I just have a fancy for Lockmore there. Of course, the defending champions. Roscrea against Moycarkey Burris on Saturday at 5 o'clock in Templemore. I'm going to go with Moycarkey Burris. But I will say they have to be a little bit careful here. They don't want to underestimate Roscrea, but I think they will have too much for Roscrea, and Eddie Brennan will have them kind of recovered from the disappointment of that mid-final defeat. And then this might be the hardest game to call. Killerone MacDonough's against Bursalee, 3:30 on Sunday in Dalla. I was at the game they played about this time last week, and that really could have went any way at all. Craig Morgan's fitness could tip it in the way of Killerone. Do I go a draw? Do you feel like there's nearly always a draw? This is probably, I feel, the most likely game that could be a draw. Maybe Toom Holy Cross there as well. Let's go with a draw here. That it could hurt the all ratio of predictions, but I think that could be a draw. Yeah, tough one. Right, let's go down to the Premier Intermediate games now. Starting in Group 1, Thurles Sarsfields against Sean Tracy's. That is on Sunday evening, 7 o'clock in Drumban. I'm going to go with Thurles Sarsfields there. Just a note of interest as well. Games that get underway at 7 o'clock. Like, it wouldn't want to be a kind of a dull, dreary day because the light is kind of fading. I was out there playing golf myself there this evening, and you had to kind of call it up after about 8:30ish. And you won't want to be hurling at that time. And the games that are getting underway at 7:30 are, I think, they're in trouble. You won't want any kind of stoppage, for whatever reason. And touch wood that there's no stoppage or whatever. But you just wouldn't want a game to go on longer than expected because the light is fading at this time of the year, at that time of the evening. Next up, Mine Temple 2 against Curtin-Ahoo. I think you have to go with Curtin-Ahoo here. They bet Mine Temple 2 by 19 points just a couple of days ago, so hard to see Mine turn that one over. Next one is, and that's a Friday evening game at 7:30, Borlan. Saturday then, Group 2, Silvermines against Borlan Duala in Bursalee at 5 o'clock. Silvermines, of course, with no Mikey Corcoran. Huge loss for them for the season. Of course, a knee injury against, with Tipperary in one of their last training sessions before the All-Ireland final. So huge disappointment there. Jason Ford operating in the half back line against Ballina, wasn't it? They played, and then pushed up. Wasn't it against Ballina? Am I right in saying that in the North Championship? God, am I right in saying that? No, Ballina bet Templeberry. Silvermines lost to Moneygall. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Borlahan here, but I wouldn't be surprised if Silvermines do win. But I'm going to go with Borlahan. That is a massive game for both teams. But yeah, Borlahan lost in the first round as well of the mid-championship against Thurles. Yeah, we'll go with Borlahan there. Next game, Aero Gannacarthy against Templederry Kenyans, again in Group 2, Sunday 1:30 in Kilcommon. Templederry's first game back in the Premier Intermediate County Championship. I'm going to go with Aero Gannacarthy there on that one. That's just a feel-based pick. Upper Church against Moneygall, really interesting game in Dalla at 1:30 on Sunday. As I was saying, not getting the best vibes out of Upper Church. Especially with the manner of their defeat to Mine Temple 2. But I didn't watch that game back, and I'm not sure who they have or who they don't. Moneygall up from the intermediate, of course, with Shawnee Kennelly and Owen Dawhan and Joe Fogarty. They've a really talented team. I think Upper Church are probably the more experienced team. Well, they are the more experienced team. So we're going to go with Upper Church here, but if I had a watch out bracket, I could just watch out for this game. Now, Upper Church could win and could win handy. Just watch out. That's all I'll say. I'll put down Upper Church, but watch out. If you're a follower of this podcast, I'm from Burgess. Of course, I can't play hurling anymore given my health reasons. But I probably wouldn't be playing for the Premier Intermediates anyway. But I'm not part of the panel anymore, let's say. So I would have been in previous years on the podcast. So I always go with Burgess. So I just have to. We're going to turn back the result of the North Final, and we're going to beat Ballina, all going well, 7:30 on Friday up in Templederry. Then on to the Group 4 on Sunday at 6 o'clock in Monroe. It's Killinall against St Mary's. Killinall beat St Mary's in the in the South Championship, but yeah, I think Killinall have a good record against St Mary's, but you feel like St Mary's with Seamus Kennedy and Peter McGarry, and the other kind of good players that they do have. I'm not sure of James Morris's situation. I think he went down injured towards the end of the Tipperary Intercounty football campaign. I never got a follow up actually to see kind of what condition he was in, because he was coming back off a knee injury, so you're always a little bit scared there. So Killinall, let's see, of course, the misses from Killinall. Bubbles back into goals. That's another close one, I think. Now, Killinall did beat them in the South. Could we put that down for a draw? Could we put that down for a draw? Oh, this is a tough one, isn't it? I am going to go with... this is a tough one. I'm going to go with Killinall. Right, let's just go with Killinall. But that's not a strong one. That is yeah, let's just put down Killinall. But I cannot. Yeah, do I put down a draw? Right, the kind of yeah. Right, we're just gonna have to move on. The next game is Carrickswan against Clonakilty in Borlahan. This is on Sunday at 3 o'clock. As I said, Carrickswan are among my favourites for this. I'm going to put Carrickswan down to win that one. Now we're going to run through the intermediate. Friday, 7:30, Portrush against Kappa White in Newport at 7:30. Kappa White are going to be buoyed from their West Championship win last Friday night. Port, disappointing for them, beaten by Shannon Rovers in the North Championship. It's kind of interesting to see where these teams are at. I'm going to go with Kappa White here, but it's just because I'm not sure what to expect from Portrush. They're always hard to beat. They've always solid players. Robert Byrne, Michael Breen, all these fellas. I'm not sure what the situation is, and I don't want to always be talking about AJ Willis and Ron Rooney if they're here or if they're not, because I feel that's kind of disrespectful to some of the other players they have. Like Sam Madden is a really, really good forward. I'm not sure exactly where they're at. I'm not sure who they have and who they don't have. So I'm going to go with Kappa White there for that one. Moyle Rovers against Skeheenarinky. Moyle Rovers' first game up, and it's against another South team in Skeheenarinky. This is in Care on Sunday at 7 o'clock. I'm going to go with Skeheenarinky here. But Moyle Rovers' first game up, let's see where they're at. This game is Ballingarry against Knockavilla in Holy Cross. This is a doubleheader on Sunday in Group 2. We've Ballingarry against Knockavilla at 5, then Clounty against Drummondinch at 7. I'm going to go with Ballingarry here in this first game, but don't be surprised if Knockavilla give them a good run. Of course, Adam Daly, Owen Horgan and goals for Knockavilla. Plenty of other nice players too. Clounty's second team against Drum's second team. This is a really hard one for me to predict. I'm not sure who these players have, who they don't have. Let's just go with Clounty. Let's just go with Clounty. That's all. I'm not too sure, to be honest, about those two teams. I'm not going to pretend I do. Burskane against Arravale. Arravale are a team that I'm interested to see this year because of their young players, David Ryan, Adam Ryan, coming through from the Tipperary under-20s team this year. Burskane have been kind of up there the last couple of years to this grade. I'm going to go with Burskane. But interesting to see how Arravale Rovers get on. That's in Templederry on Saturday at 7. Carrickdavins against Newport. Newport coming down from Premier Intermediate. This is in Cashel on Sunday at 6 o'clock. And this is very interesting to see where Newport are at. I'll give them the nod against Carrickdavins, but it's not a confident giving of the nod. Newport were beaten in the North Championship first round by Burskane. I'll give them the nod here, but yeah, I'm not too sure where Carrickdavins are at. I haven't been up to date on their results, so I'll give Newport the nod there. Ballybacon against Golden Kilfeacle. I will give Golden the win there. That's on Friday at 7:30 in Bansha. And then finally, we have Kilsheal and Kilcash against Shannon Rovers in Templetooey on Saturday at 6 o'clock. If you're a long-term listener, last year I think I predicted Shannon Rovers to maybe lose every game they were in, and they won pretty much every game they were in, all the way to was it the quarter-final or semi-final. So Doubt Shannon Rovers at your peril is the lesson I've learned. But Kilsheelan, do they have Mark Keogh back? I'm not sure. They'll have a nice forward line there with Senan Butler as well if Mark Keogh is back. He mightn't even be in the country. I'm not too sure. So if you're from Kilsheelan, you'll know, or if you're more up to date with what's happening down in South Tipperary, you'll know there. I feel like I'm at the point now with Shannon Rovers that if I predict them to win, they'll lose. So what you want from me, Shannon Rovers people? They're North champions. Are Kilsheelan or South champions, aren't they? Yeah, they are. I have them highlighted. Yeah. So it is a big game because that's. I feel like Ballybacon are the kind of 4 team in that group, and the 3 other teams should be fairly competitive against each other. I'm going to go with. Where is it on? Temple Toohey. Let's go with Kilsheelan. We'll see if this theory works where I go against Shannon Rovers and they win every time. So I'm going to go with Kilsheelan to win that game. So those are my predictions. You can let me know your predictions below. Even if it's let me know below who do you think is going to win the Dan Breen, who's going to be a dark horse in the Dan Breen, and do that for the Premier Intermediate and Intermediate as well. So who do you think is going to win? Who's a dark horse in all the 3 divisions? And let me know in the comments below. So yeah, I think is that pretty much all we have. We have our tier list done. We've run through who I think is going to win. Oh yeah, the odds. So let's go on to Paddy Power. Excuse me. And let's try and find out the odds here. How do I get down here? So Gaelic games, competitions. This is just kind of to see where my consensus is. So where do we have club hurling? Tipperary club hurling, right. Let's go with outrights. The senior championship. Okay, so they just have the senior championship. So they have Thurles Sarsfields as the 13-5 favourites, Lockmore 7-2, Killadangan 9-2. That's a good price for Killadangan, I think. I think they're going to be right there. Then they have Toomevara 6-1, Nina 7-1, Brackens 11-1, Holy Cross 12-1. Who's this? Killer 1 12s, and then 14-1 for Bursley, Mycarkey, and Drum. And then you've 16-1 for Clonalty, 40-1 for Roscrea, 50-1 for Cashel, 66-1 for Mullinahone, and 90-1 for Lura. So they have Lura as favourites to go down. Wow, 90-1. That's incredible. So yeah, let's see where. Yeah, so there is differences there to the tier list I have. So in terms of value picks, 9-2 for Kildangan I think is pretty good. Mycarkey, what are they? 14-1. That's a pretty good price there as well. And Bracken's 11-1. Tomb 6s. Yeah, so those are the prices there. I thought we might get the Premier Intermediate odds there, but we don't. And they have some of the odds there. Bracken's 1-5 against Lura. Bursley, slight favourites against Killer 1. Cashel, big favourites against Mullinahone there. Killadangan 3-10 against Clonalty. Tomb 4-6 to Holy Crosses 6-4. Lockmore 1-2 to Drummond Inches 15-8. Mycarkey 3-10 to Roscrea's 3-1. And Thurles 1-2 to Nina's 2-1. So yeah, interesting to just see the kind of differences in what the bookmakers have it as to what I have it. But yeah, those are my predictions, and I pretty much think that is podcast number 1 for the club championship. Yeah, I'm not gonna hang around any longer. We've been on here for what, 53, nearly 54 minutes. If you've made it this far, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and yeah, you can follow me over on Instagram, over on Twitter. It's at @PCarrollSport, and you'll keep up to date with whatever content I'm putting out. Also on TikTok. TikTok's actually my most followed platform. We're nearly at 3,000 followers there over on TikTok. So yeah, follow me on all them. Enjoy the weekend. I'll be at a load of the games, and I really can't wait for it. And we will have the review podcast possibly Sunday evening, but if not, it'll be Monday evening. We'll see what way I am after the weekend. So that is what we have for the first round of the county championship. Enjoy the action, and we will chat to you after round 1. Good luck.